The survival mode you've been stuck in. You're stuck on survival. A man running on alert, not because something's happening, but because your body never got the signal that it stopped. A lot of you guys have an immense amount of pressure. You're competent, you're ambitious, but you can't ever seem to rest. You, my friend, are stuck in survival mode. You're stuck on survival. All the pressure from the life that you're building, from the goals that you're looking to achieve, you are stuck in survival. So now at night, you can't fucking sleep because all you could think about is how, oh, I need to get more of this, I need to get more of that. You're stuck in survival mode. And think about it like a switch that's stuck on. You can't turn it off. You can't turn it off. That's exactly how your body is. So if you're constantly tense, constantly feeling that pressure, you're stuck on survival. You're stuck on alert. Your body perceives that there's a threat, and when your nervous system perceives there's a threat, it's gonna stay in fight or flight. So you're putting yourself in this mode, okay? You're always on. You're constantly under pressure, not from one thing, but from everything at once. You can't rest because rest feels like falling behind. Even when nothing's demanding anything of you right now, your body doesn't know that. Rest isn't the opposite of pressure, it's just pressure with nowhere to go. You can't stay still. You sit down, you lay down, you want to watch a movie, and you're jittery, you're on your phone, and you're thinking about, oh, I gotta get this done, I gotta get that done, and you don't know how to rest. You don't know how to stay still. And I'm dealing with this even right now myself. And I've gotten out of this mode. But when you're putting an immense amount of pressure on yourself, especially when you're building something great, your body doesn't know the difference. When you're going through identity shifts, your body doesn't know the difference. So what does it do? It stays on because it feels like it's in a threatened state, okay? And this makes you worse because you feel like you always need to be on because you're trying to stay in control. At this point, for you, safety and control are the same thing. And this messes up everything for you. This messes up everything. Your ability to access flow state, your ability to walk into a room without already feeling pressure of having to be some type of guy. You're performative. You're not really, expressing doesn't take any energy. But when you're in survival mode, everything you do takes energy, and most of the energy that is being drained from you is from your own overthinking, your own over hesitation, your lack of rest because you're sleepless. Now your body feels behind all the time. So the pressure is really coming from whatever it is that you're building. You're competent, you're ambitious, whatever it is that you're running away from, you know? What are you running away from? That's what causes survival mode. So you're sitting down, you're trying to watch a fucking movie, you're trying to sleep at night. All this pressure is built up in you. You know what that feeds? That feeds lust. Many of you may be addicted to porn. That feeds the lust. Because for a split second, when you're lusting, when you're fucking, when you're watching porn, when you're smoking weed or whatever your vice is, it allows you to escape from that pressure. It allows you to escape who you are. You see, and then now you fall into these cycles where now you're guilty for falling into those things. And now you're creating your own tension. You're creating your own cycles. So now you're guilty. Now you're feeling bad, and now you even have more pressure that you're not meeting your standard. Ain't that a bitch? Ain't that a bitch? Your own body has basically become an enemy, but it's because of the way we regulate, or rather lack of regulation. A lot of you don't lack discipline. You lack the ability to turn off the pressure so that way you could be in alignment. You see, when every time you're building something that you actually want to do, it's never gonna feel like a drag. I'm not gonna say never, but it won't feel like a drag most of the time. You're not gonna find yourself procrastinating, putting it off, because that is a part of who you are. I always use the analogy of like a kid and a video game. When I was a kid, bruh, or my dad was trying to take me off the video game, my mom, that it was tough. I don't want to get off that shit. I wanted to keep going, keep going, keep going, keep playing the game. And when you're stuck on survival mode, stuck of I need to make it, I need to make it, and this is not enough, the pressure on you is going to cause you to fall behind, and now you're chasing constantly whatever it is that you're chasing. And the truth about that is that there's no really expectation, there's no really metric, I guess you could say, to hit. It's just a number, or a productivity list that we put in our head. Okay, now of course we want to hit our goals. I'm not saying that, but our inability to turn it off is what's keeping us stuck longer in this cycle. Because you take a step away, it shows that you can actually trust the Most High with whatever it is that you're building. It shows that you trust yourself to be able to step back and say, if I step away from this, I could take a break from this, and it's gonna make me better because now I'm not living with all this internal pressure that's gonna cause me to implode. Okay. The guilt loop, what you call rest, sits down, feels behind immediately, mind still running the list, relaxing but tense. You can't ever stay present in the moment. And presence, is a man's present. You can't ever stay present. You're thinking about the next task, the next thing you need to get done. You're always, you know, 10 steps ahead, which is good, which is admirable, but you can't ever relax. And this inability to relax, it causes a weariness in your bones. You know, your inability to turn off your vigilance, it keeps you paranoid, in a state of paranoia. And that drains you more than anything else. So, what actual rest requires? Your body believing the threat is over. No guilt attached to stillness. A nervous system that's allowed to stand down. You're never actually off, you're just paused. When your nervous system cannot regulate and it cannot downshift from fight or flight to stillness, this drains you more than anything. More than anything. And you're constantly going to feel like you're being pulled by your mind, and you're running on this rat race, I guess you could say. You're going in the hamster wheel. You're just on a loop. You're just on a loop. And if you guys know this state, it's very, very, very addictive. Ironically, it's addictive because, yeah, you feel guilty for resting, but you feel there. It's a fucked up cycle of you feel behind. The only thing that really makes you feel ahead is when you're actually producing. And if you're not producing, you're guilty. Why? Why? You know? Like I said, there's no timeline. Like you know, a lot of us, we are ambitious. We may have content systems. Some of us may be waiting for a video to hit. I know I am. I know my shit gonna hit, the score. But we're waiting for that big breakthrough moment. But those moments, those big moments, quote unquote, they often come very quietly. You don't even notice them most of the time until a couple months pass and you're like, oh shit, that really happened. A lot of those moments aren't loud. So when you don't give yourself that permission to be still, to be at rest, and I'm really talking about turning the mind off. You're in a state of control, you're in a state of grip, and you're showing the Most High that you need this thing too much. Anything you need is gonna run away from you. You have to allow things to come to you. I always use the analogy with the woman. You ever go up to a woman desperately? You sound like a crack addict that needs crack. You kind of want to persuade her from a distance and kind of you know fish her out like a fish. Why you're restless? Your mind runs the list at night because your body's still in a state of survival. Vigilance doesn't clock out just because the day did. You're not overthinking, you're still on fight or flight. You don't have a racing mind, you have a body that never got the signal it's safe. So the thing with this is that this state, it makes you feel very powerful. Like I mentioned earlier, it makes you feel, uneasy. The pressure, it allows you to enter into states where you're able to really, you know, use anger, hatred, like I said, pressure to really activate. And it's a cycle where you need pressure to activate. A lot of you, like myself, sometimes we could get too comfortable. Then we get mad at ourselves for being too comfortable. And then we're, oh fuck, I need to lock in. You need that pressure. You need that pressure. That's fight or flight. You need to create these enemies in your head so that way you could actually galvanize yourself to go to the next level. But the problem with that is that, like I said, that next level is always filled with pressure. Now you feel behind, now you feel restless, now you're still producing, but you feel guilty when you're not producing, and that's keeping you stuck in the same cycle longer than you need to be. Anytime your nervous system clears up capacity, you now unlock another level of yourself, which allows you to actually be who you need to be to get everything you want out of life. Okay? For me, a lot of the time, I speak about cold approaching on this channel. For me, that was an integral part of building my capacity, because it built my capacity to be seen on camera, be seen in front of others, which is something I'm still working on. Be able to approach the women that I wanted without being in a state of survival. This has also helped my ability to close. This has also helped my ability to stand under pressure, per se, or say what I want unapologetically, express myself authentically, because I taught my system to not be in a state of survival just because you're speaking to strangers. I was someone who's very insecure, who's very afraid to be seen in public. Like those movies where, like, you see someone in your past and you would avoid them. That was me. And that was because my subconscious mind associated me being seen as a threat, and that left me in a state of survival, especially when I would a cold approach. And I will definitely do a slide on that, why men cannot cold approach. But being in the state of survival, talking to a woman shouldn't be pressure, closing a sale shouldn't be pressure, recording videos shouldn't be pressure, going to the gym and not having a certain physique shouldn't be pressure. All of these things should not be pressurized. I know the world likes to promote this idea that you gotta make it, you gotta make it. Yeah, you should strive for your goals and go after them, but let's not pretend you can't enjoy life and still be super disciplined, still move in alignment. you know let's go to the next slide. The cost. This is what burns you out, not the workload, the inability to ever come off alert. A man who can't stand down eventually breaks down. The problem was never how much you're carrying, it's that you never put it down. You do not have the ability to put down the weight you're carrying. And one great scripture I've been meditating on lately is the thoughts of the diligent lead only to plenteousness, and the hasty only to want. That let's focus on the hasty part. But the hasty only to want means you're impatient. You're looking for relief, you're looking for escape by the life that you're building, not realizing that once you get there, you're not going to be able to put down that weight. You're actually going to have more pressure. And you know what's going to happen? You're going to self-sabotage and revert back to the version of you that is constantly looking to acquire rather than sustain. Sustenance in a state of sustaining is unable for you, because in this state of survival, you're constantly burning out. You're constantly burning out. For me, what happened to me is that, I would go on these streaks of where I'd be super, in alignment, super disciplined, per se, and then I'd burn out. I'll be burning out by Friday. 4 to 5 days before I burn out. And other people, like, they go 5 days, then the weekend they crash out. They crash out, they eat all the junk food and all types of shit. That is an escape from who they're trying to be, rather than being who they are and then allowing those things to come naturally. The difference is that when you try to be something, you're trying to sustain something that's not really a part of you. And when you are something, you're not sustaining, you're just expressing because that's who you are. So, at the beginning of starting things, you should technically be in a state of discomfort because you're integrating something you want to do. For me, that was cold approaching. For me, that was creating content. It was uncomfortable at first, but now it's become a part of who I am. So it's easy for me to now do it at a high capacity, you know? The workload, it doesn't crush me no more. But it takes time to build that up and prime the nervous system for you to be able to, you know, manage these fears, manage these doubts. When it comes to content, a lot of people cannot record themselves on camera because they're afraid of being seen, because they know that they're trying to be something on camera that they're not. I'm the same on camera and the same off camera. Same talking points, same conversations. The only difference is the presentation. So this is not a burden to me. It's actually a calling. And this is what would burn me out. I was playing different versions of myself in different rooms. Okay? So eventually you feel like you're in a state of power, really you're in a state of threat and thrill, and that breaks you down. Okay? That breaks you down. You're waiting for permission from the life you're building to be at peace rather than being at peace with the life you're building. Many of you are chasing a life where it gives you permission to be yourself. You want to be bold. You want to be seen as the guy. You want to be seen as competent, ambitious. You want to prove to the world who you are, rather being who you are and then allowing the world to see who you are. The thing is that once you get to the life that you're building, it's still going to be filled with pressure. You're still going to feel a gap between who you are and who you're showing up as, because the life was never going to give you that permission. That is a lie of the world. The liberty only comes to be yourself when you give yourself permission to be yourself. And that's much easier to manage, per se, than you fucking go years feeling under pressure, feeling like shit, feeling horrible, than you being able to enjoy your life. You guys have to have a work-life balance. I don't even like that shit because my work-life balance is, to some, it'd be unbalanced. But I still take time away from the stuff that I'm building. That way I could actually enjoy life to the fullest, you know? Because for a long time I would be, constantly working, constantly working, constantly working. But it was just a way for me to get on that proverbial treadmill, chase the life that I was building, so then I could finally be at peace. I've been there and I've done that, and I'll tell you guys, what ends up happening is that you get to that life, you proved it to yourself, and all of a sudden you're in a state of apatheticness. You don't give a fuck no more because you proved it. And those months where you're down because you proved it to yourself, you're going to lose your hunger, you're going to lose your motivation. You've acquired it, but now you cannot sustain it, and you're trying to sustain it and you don't feel as hungry. You know what happens? You slip back to baseline and you can't handle that shit. The pressure will kill you and you'll go back to your old life. And that guilt will fuck you up even more. That's exactly where I was at. The guilt of fucking up that life fucked me up even more. I thought I was lazy. I thought I was incompetent. I thought I was incapable. And I thought that's what proved. That's what that proved. I thought I was a failure. No, I wasn't a failure. The truth about it was I waited for permission to be at peace with the life I was building, right? Once I got that life, and I got that life, I thought I would be at uneasy. I thought I would be at ease, but I didn't have the capacity to hold that life, so I ended up fucking it up. It was an expectation that I needed to have things now, 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 because I was in a state of survival. When you're surviving, there's no thriving. When you're thriving, there's no survival, because your body knows I don't need to be on all the time, and you're able to downshift to peace. I'm not saying, comfortability. You should want to be comfortable. Why wouldn't we? We're building a life of abundance. Why wouldn't you want to be comfortable? But you're not going to be able to enjoy that, a life of abundance and riches, especially you're a man who's a builder, if you can't ever turn it off. And it's better to do it now if you're building something or building towards something than later, when you have it and you're still asking yourself, why don't I feel enough? Why isn't this enough? Nothing in this physical world is going to fill that hole, fill that gap inside of you, besides allowing yourself to become the man that the Most High made you to be. Because then He will see you don't need anything in this physical world, and then He will open your heart with peace, comfort, sincerity, truth, love. And that's the way you overcome this restlessness that's deep in your bones, that feeling that it's a constant vigilance, a constant tiredness. That's all for today. Click the link down below for my ebook, You're a Man Who Betrays Himself, where I go over the cycles of how you betray yourself and how you fall into these different cycles. And the 1% Man program is still coming. It's still something that I'm building out. Subscribe. I'm gonna, continue to put out these videos, and I'm gonna put out different videos so that way that you guys could be edified and you guys could start moving the way you want to and being the man that you know that you are, you know. So you could be whole and perfect and entire, like the scripture says, or in this space integrated. All parts of you are moving in alignment. Then once you're moving in alignment, this life becomes easy for you to fuck and dominate, if we're being candid. So, that's all for today. You know, any comments down below, any questions, go ahead and ask them. That's all. Peace.